Dearly redheaded, we are choosing consciousness today to get through this thing called grief. Interesting word, grief. It means love, which makes for a mighty good joke. But I'm here to tell you, there's nothing else. Just joy. And if the big picture tends to bring you down, go crazy once your life goes. Woo!
Brian thinks I pay attention to technical details.
Yeah, you're going now. So.
I miss a lot. So we're going to go into episode 3, still talking about trauma symptoms because I think they're important. The reason I was hesitant to do a 3rd episode about this is because I can't wait to get to the funny, dirty stuff I want to talk about. But I'll be disciplined. So one thing we talked about, dissonance, cognitive dissonance, confabulation, dissociation. I have added a few things of my own in conjunction with other people's research, but they're the lesser known. Domestic Stockholm, where we're aligned with people who are supposed to, love and be good to us, and it creates this domestic Stockholm, where we are indoctrinated into abuse. In my case, when I was a toddler, and I think very young in your case as well. Correct?
Yes.
So, I then found out. And I don't know if I shared this one with you. There's and I'm fine with labels if they help people feel better. So that's why I'm throwing things out there, because I think very often with C-PTSD, you're on a roll, you're feeling good, but there's still something nagging, and that's where that Stockholm worked for me, because I could relate to it, and then I can forgive myself, and then I can have compassion for myself, and it just really changed my perspective, and perspective is a lot when you're neurodivergent. Not that it isn't when you're not, but we really seek. Fair?
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. But there's something called the Tantalus complex, when almost achievement switches on as anxiety. Trauma memory is encoded so that the episode is felt as now, not as then, so neutral, and even pleasant cues are overestimated as potentially dangerous. Attentional systems latch onto hints of a repeat of the past, the body holds readiness, and any uncertainty is read as a threat, which is kind of what you were indicating at the end of the last episode.
Right.
So that has a name, Tantalus complex.
Okay.
You know me. I like to name it so I can move on. The thing about all of this, and you and I have discussed this as another thinking experiment, and I'll remind you, for each of us, the trauma experiences had to come in 3s. I had childhood, I had marital, I thought I had the key to the city, but I needed a 3rd experience with a roommate to finally get this stuff. Can you speak to what you needed to finally get out of what happened beyond your childhood and your marriage?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely my 3rd big experience. Look, there's many little micro experiences in the major 3, but the major, I always called it like crossroads in these experiences, because it was a clear definition that I was turning a corner. I was going a different way. I was awake to something that I was not prior. I was more aware of it, whether somebody else brought it to my attention or I'm finding it out as I go in the situation. So for me, it was 3. With a bunch of scattered in little micro ones, but 3 major.
I think for those listeners, it's tied to what we allow, tolerate, think is normal, especially when you've heard it 3 times, like the parties all look alike or sound alike or act alike enough so that your brain finally recognizes it's a problem versus it's home.
Right. Like, oh, maybe this version of home is the actual problem. These patterns are important because they're very easily missed when we are in situations that are familiar and make us comfortable in abuse or trauma. Especially if it was early on trauma, it's easy to fall into to being comfortable in those situations because it's so familiar.
Brain goes for what's familiar.
Right.
Nope. All right, I think we've kicked it in the teeth enough. And I'm just making, and this one. And this is a stretch, but this is something that I was thinking about when you're in a sexual relationship with someone with an antisocial personality disorder. You know, what is that when it's consensual but fucked up? Fair? I found thank you. I found something called consensual chronic violation. When I was leaving Conversion Works here last week, those 3 words came to me. Consensual chronic violation. I wasn't raped. And you and I both talk about how much we appreciate sex. So it was like, well, what was that then? And, you know, I couldn't, had I known, had you known what was occurring, we wouldn't have been a participant. And I think this really speaks to what's going on with the Epstein women. We call him a sexual predator. He's a psychopath. And we are talking about sexual abuse for women who have C-PTSD. So you see you smell what I'm stepping in?
Well, I think so. But I'm over the phone, so I can't really smell where you are. But I always kind of knew. I mean, look, it wasn't...
Talk about that, because I want to say something. You go.
Always consensual. I was never in a situation where it was not consensual, but that didn't always mean I agreed. I just didn't have the ability within myself to say, I don't think this is right. We shouldn't be doing this because of my upbringing. I was a people pleaser.
Oh, okay. That's not where I thought you were going to go.
Oh, okay.
No, keep going.
Okay. Oh, sure. So even in situations where I may have not been comfortable, I was never comfortable with using my voice and saying, I don't think I want to do this. Lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. So bring me back to what
I can't relate.
Okay.
No.
Yeah,
I'm teasing.
Using my being able, look, and I don't want to say that this kind of trauma is always on my mind. It's always what I'm thinking about, because it's not.
Right.
But it was a factor of my development throughout my life in situations with people where I would have a sexual relationship with somebody, and for the most part, whether or not despite the other abusive acts that may have been going on, not physical, but more psychological.
Right.
Even though it was consensual, it wasn't always proper. It wasn't always right. And it wasn't always a thing where I felt comfortable enough to stand up for myself.
I'm going to be very careful here. I think my unconscious knew, because of how my body and my mind would have to react in order to have the experience.
I can relate to that.
Thank you.
I definitely knew. My body knew. And I think that ties into dissociation too, because
Absolutely.
that's how we get through it sometimes.
Absolutely. And being people that enjoyed sex, what I would do in my mind to make it enjoyable and how it was being felt in my body, I'm not going to elaborate because I'm not totally comfortable doing that. I brought it up once with a therapist, and I found talking about it so unbelievably, like it was nothing he had talked about before. And I just was like, okay, I want to talk about this with people who get it. I don't want to, talk about this for somebody who's not going to understand why I think that's one of the reasons, and maybe you can relate, maybe you can tell me I'm all wet, is why we do have such sexual minds, because that's where you could enjoy it.
Totally. That's where it's, look, sex is enjoyable. It's even more enjoyable when it's not in one of these constant states, but it is. And it's when you can channel that energy through the sexual act with this said person, it makes it even more heightened. It's on a different level, and it's hard to replicate in any other situation.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew. And I'm being a little facetious, but not that facetious. But you know what? It merely now I'm going to another place with it. Doesn't it give you insight as to what the male mind does?
Elaborate on that. I think I'm missing it.
Because I would imagine, and again, being married to somebody who, trying to not make it personal, I shouldn't have even said married, being involved with somebody that needed that relationship in his mind to make it work, who's disassociating himself. Porn, whatever.
Right.
And I have more to say there, but enough is enough. That's, again, I cop out sometimes and say I'll write about it, but I just have a real bead on, and I it goes back to two dissociated parties in bed. For whatever. All right, we can start to lighten this up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, I appreciate these conversations because they make me think in ways that bring me deeper, and I feel like that's what it's all about is being able to take these situations that have presented us in this experience and learn how to grow from it, and then learn how to verbalize it to others who might be stuck in the throes of it.
Absolutely. I have a mixed reaction to doing this. Doing this the last several weeks has made me realize how unimportant it is to me. But it's very important to me to spare somebody else grief and get them on the joy thing. I've done it my whole life in small ways. I just wanted to do it in a way that I get it on record, and it hopefully puts me in a place after I do this podcast for however many months I'm going to do it, that it's out there and I don't have to have it in my head anymore.
Right.
And I think that's why I've written thousands of jokes. They were my poetry. And it was crushing to write what I was writing, knowing it wouldn't go anywhere. And that's a little easier to get over. But these trauma thoughts and abuse thoughts are a horse of a different color, because I know where I've put my brain. I think I told you when I was having a psychedelic episode, it was such an interesting time in that portal of time when my aunt and my mom died. I did some very, very interesting things. I'm laughing because I was so aware that I was sane doing it. Like off to the side, I could see brains that succumb to suffering or trauma. And it was my mind's way of reassuring myself that I wasn't anywhere near there. And I was grateful, because then I could continue.
Yeah.
And I could take the notes, and I have some notes from my ascension experiences that I have yet to locate because of circumstances that I'm not going to get into now. You know why, but I when I was doing those things, it was beautiful. I was actually at a point where I was really comfortable with the experiences I was having, sober. And I've had to be reminded that those thoughts are okay, and that's been more challenging in the last year. Lee Harris, you know who Lee Harris is? He's a intuitive, balding in his 40s.
Not off the top of my head, but maybe.
It doesn't matter. Mayim had him on. And that's actually how I found Mayim, was she was interviewing Lee Harris. And Lee Harris is just one of those intuitives, channelers. He calls himself a few different things. He's just totally comfortable in all his abilities. And he said something so profound for me when he was talking to her, and she was a little skeptical. Jonathan was a little skeptical, and it's a great interview. He said for himself he had to decide, how many mirrors should I open before giving back to the human experience? And I was like, bang, zoom. Bang, zoom. That's it. So I'm careful with that balance. Does that make sense?
I think so. I mean, it does it in a. I mean, that statement. That's really awesome. I like that. How many times before you give back to the human experience? Because I do think that that's a big part of this.
Yeah, and that's what makes the fifth, sixth, and seventh dimensions, the perspective on them, more tolerable, because you've satisfied the third, fourth, and fifth. The sixth being more of a relationship with self. And from there, it's spotty. He also made a comment about empaths, which Mayim responded to, about how, she struggles with carrying the weight of the world. And he said they tend to suffer more with the carrying of suffering versus joy. And I thought, bang, 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 bang. That joy thing, wanting to sedate joy, is associated with trauma and trauma and grief and abuse.
Completely. Yeah.
And that's the fly in the ointment.
What's more uncomfortable than experiencing joy? Really? In those kinds of scenarios. I mean, the experiencing joy, unfortunately, is the uncomfortable. And we have to go with that. I find myself questioning it when it presents itself. And that's sad.
That's because it's butt fucking rage.
Yeah. To put it nicely.
I thought I did. Thought that was very nice. Yeah, those two, that and rage in women is, we could, ah, that's just, it's so misunderstood and so underestimated and so unfortunate.
Well, I don't think it's allowed.
Right.
I don't think it's definitely not attractive.
I find, well, I'm a sick fuck though, so I find people in touch with their rage incredibly attractive if they can call it, call it
If they
what
can
it
call
is.
it for what it is,
Yeah.
and know it. I think that there's a line of danger of having an enormous amount of rage and not even knowing, which I had parts of that in my life until it was brought to my attention by my very dear friend, and she put it into terms where I can touch it and realize, like, holy shit, am I angry? And that's a very dangerous person, of someone who's that angry and doesn't even know it.
Well,
and can't verbalize it, and it because it seeps into all aspects of life.
Well, this is a stretch, but I'm going to try it. When you're enabling, when you're tolerating, when you say how you feel and it's not honored, all those things build up. And I don't think our brains are meant to process. I think the unconscious wants the dark night of the soul, and it wants it dumped. And that's, I think we're a bunch of people, brushing up against our dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
And had I not had a cleansing of my unconscious, then when I had that and was able to unload so much, then when I was found myself sedating rage again, it was a simpler process, and I finally figured out I should have known. People around me should have known. My therapist, quote unquote, should have known. But I function very well, and I'm very self-aware, and as you are, and we are, we're still dissociating the rage.
I think connection has a lot to do with that.
Meaning?
I personally feel that the level of connection that people can have one another is failing us, because it's even in a therapist setting. How many therapists can you honestly say are really seeing you for the person that you are and the experiences that you're going through, and can really connect with you and give you that space and energy? They're going to have to take that on too. So in the therapist, in my mind, in their perspective, they can only give you so much. They can only give themselves so much. So how connected really are you to the person that you're pouring into? And I think that's part of the problem. I don't think we get to experience total connection with people that we need to, and that's a part of healing. That creates the safe space. That creates the trust. That creates the vulnerability of, I can let this out. I can let it go. I don't have to hold on to it anymore. I am not going to be, rejected or hurt, or, not heard, or, I think it's encompassing. I think connection, especially now, I think a lot of the connection is superficial. It's the illusion of connection.
I'm going to take it. I agree with everything you said. I just don't love the word. And maybe that's because of the way that I connect, which I'm not trying to debate. But I'm finding, this is number 3. All right, just trying to keep my episodes and minutes straight. I think that's tied to the science of psychology, because they are not supposed to, they're supposed to meet you where you're at. So, in a sense of suggesting something like domestic Stockholm, rage, to a person that doesn't recognize it within themselves, puts them in a very challenging position, because they can't and don't make higher level suggestions for healing. At least that was my experience.
Yeah.
And a lot of
I
them
can see that.
suck.
Yeah.
I mean, then there's that.
Yeah.
And that's the science part of things. That's the science part of things. That's why, and it goes back to being autistic. I learned the most about autism from autistics, not from people speculating about autism. Now I'm an asshole because I speculate all the time, but I'm an autistic speculating. We're supposed to innovate. We're supposed to invent. It's like, I'm a happy hypocrite. I just astonishing. I think it's 2025, and the fact that we're just linking dissociation to dementia is like I feel like I'm in a different reality because of the things that I see and know and feel that aren't in the third dimension. And you can't go around punching everybody in the throat. I mean, you could, but I'd rather use my strengths for good instead of evil. At least that's what I tell myself. There's a couple people. Anyway, I digress. All right. Well, enough of that stuff. We were at the 25-minute mark. We're gonna. I'm still threatening fun and sex talk. So let's take a break and go into number 4.
Thank you for listening and supporting Natural Born Redhead. If you follow the bouncing balls, please like and subscribe. If you know someone interested in sparing others grief and inciting joy, message me on Facebook or reach out via my website, Natural Born Redhead. J-Ma.